Ukraine launched a surprise drone attack on Russia Sunday. The drones were smuggled inside of Russia, striking dozens of Russian bombers at multiple air bases.
Ukraine says the operation took out more than a third of Russia's strategic bombers, causing an estimated $7 billion in damage. And it came one day before peace talks resumed today in Turkey. Joining us to break down what all of this could mean for the war is Euro-Atlantic security consultant Natalie Melnyczuk. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with these peace talks. This is kind of the second round in recent days of these talks. Are they really that? Is anything concrete coming out of these discussions?
Really nothing anticipated to come out of today's round two talks materialized. At the high end, there was a small hope that maybe positive discussions could be held, and I think that's about it. They're not being held at the highest level. There's nothing concrete expected going in, so the output matches accordingly. They did agree, however, on the two sides in their less than 1 hour meeting today to exchange 1,000 prisoners each, and the details of that will be worked out shortly. But otherwise, this is really just part of a broader game of chess that Putin is playing with the United States, with the West, with Ukraine, which is he's playing the game of peace talks, but at the same time, he's ramping up for a new offensive onto Ukraine. Troops and armaments are being amassed on the border again with Ukraine to be added to the troops that are already within Ukraine. So he's kowtowing and paying lip service to peace talks, but there doesn't seem to be anything genuine backing up these talks.
Yeah, and we were seeing that this attack was planned for more than a year and a half. What does that say about the fact that there are conversations being had about peace talks, but yet we see this sort of thing happening?
Right. Well, we can't forget Ukraine is the one who's been attacked. Ukraine has to defend itself 24 hours a day or Ukraine disappears. It simply ceases to exist. Putin takes it over. However, Russia has nothing to lose. It is trying to expand territorially. It is trying to wipe off Ukraine and just absorb it into an even bigger Russia. So nothing to lose for Putin except perhaps his ego. Everything to lose for Ukraine. Ukraine would love a 30-day unconditional ceasefire immediately. As soon as President Trump floated that about 2 months ago, Ukraine quickly agreed to the terms of not only a full ceasefire, but an unconditional immediate ceasefire. On the other hand, Russia has not agreed to a ceasefire, a full ceasefire, or an unconditional ceasefire, not even a temporary one. The most that Putin has suggested was a 1 or 2 day ceasefire when he was holding parades in Red Square at the start of May. And that was simply to assure that there wouldn't be any problems during the glorious parade. So we don't see President Putin sincere, but what we do see in this strike yesterday was first, Ukraine is working diligently to make use of whatever resources it has. It needs to be creative, inventive, and it needs to reach targets deep inside Russia that are being used militarily against Ukraine every day to target civilians and the civilian infrastructure. So really astounding. In a top secret attack yesterday, Ukraine sent in 117 drones deep into Russia, as much as 2,500 miles in. They struck 4 different Air Force bases, hitting 41 military aircraft, strategic bombers, long-range bombers, spy plane. There are only a couple of spy planes that Russia has anyway. And they destroyed 13 of these aircraft completely and disabled the others. So that took out more than a third of Russia's capability to deliver weapons, missiles, and nuclear missiles at that. And it all took place in less than an hour.
This stage of the war, since Russia invaded Ukraine, has been going on for almost 3.5 years now. Is there any reason to believe that there will be a significant change in the weeks or months to come?
Well, I think the key here is really the alliance and the coalition of the willing in Europe and across the world. There are over 50 countries that are backing and supporting Ukraine in one form or another. NATO's at the core of that, and the United States. If the United States ramps up its rhetoric to meet our deterrent capabilities, if our capabilities match up with our willingness to actually flex our muscle, Putin would quickly stop his invasion. But he will not stop unless there is a credible deterrent in his path. And if he doesn't stop, then he's going to keep on going. Ukraine will just be the appetizer, and a few years later, they'll go onward into Europe. NATO is preparing for that. The United Kingdom is preparing for that. They released their new defense doctrine today. They want to increase their lethal defense capabilities tenfold in the next years. They want to build new munitions plants, 7,000 new long-range missiles, and they want to build 13 new nuclear submarines. So Europe understands what's at stake here. This could all be stopped if the United States, along with our NATO allies, stands up more strongly against Russia. And right now, Senator Lindsey Graham announced from Paris yesterday that 41 senators, Republican senators, and 41 Democratic senators have signed on to an increased sanctions bill against Russia. So all but 19 senators have already signed the bill, and within 2 weeks, the House of Representatives and the Senate should vote and pass that bill, which would immediately have an effect on Russia's ability to continue waging their war.
All right, we'll be following along closely to see if that does happen. Natalie Melnyczuk, as always, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.